And hello again, everybody, and welcome to First and North, our weekly look at all things NFC North. Behind us, week number 5 in the National Football League. Ahead of us, week number 6. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to get to all of it. Let's first get the roll call in. As we say, I am Dan Miller from Detroit. We cover the Lions here. Fox Minneapolis, we have Amy Hockert, who's going to update us on all things Vikings. Fox Chicago, Lou Canellis, who's going to talk Bears. Fox Milwaukee, Lily Zhao, who will talk Packers. Now, let's start right here. Lou, we've had a tough time through the first month of this show, but today we get to start with something positive. The Bears won a game. They won a game in impressive fashion. They beat Washington by a score of 40-20. The floor is yours, my friend. You have waited for this.
Do you know how good that feels, Dan? Do you know how good it feels to tell me, Lou, take over? You can talk about the way the Bears played and won a game on Thursday night. I'll tell you what, I'm going to steal something from a terrific Bears beat writer here in Chicago named Brad Biggs for the Chicago Tribune. Brad wrote that the perfect deodorant is a game like last Thursday's for the stench that surrounded this franchise going all the way back to the middle of last season. They snap a franchise record 14-game losing skid. By the way, it was the longest active losing streak in the NFL up to that point. They had not won a game in 346 days, and they won, guys, in convincing fashion, and it all started up front. The offensive line, in my opinion, was the biggest reason why this team finally won a football game against a team that has a real good front four. You guys know that. Dan and Lily and Amy, Washington's front four, say what you want about the Commanders. Yeah. They've got a front four of first-round draft picks who will come and get you. And because the Bears' offensive line stood up to the challenge and played well and gave Justin Fields time to throw the football downfield, gave DJ Moore time to get that football and then rack up over 140, 150 yards in yards after the catch, gave the defense a chance to pin its ears back and finally attack the quarterback. It all starts up front. I know we say it all the time, but it showed on Thursday night, and the Bears were finally winners. And now, hey, listen, I get it. Broncos were the worst team defensively in the NFL. No team's given up more points. Second worst team, the Washington Commanders. But at least there is some positive momentum with this Bears team going into a stretch that could work in their favor. Minnesota without Justin Jefferson. The Raiders, yeah, coming off a win against the Packers. I'll still take my chances at home at Soldier Field. You've got the Saints, the Chargers, Carolina. Who knows? Maybe the Bears start stringing some wins together.
So let me drill down on the deodorant and the positive momentum for just a second, because, look, we've done some losing in Detroit. I've been where you are. Doesn't it lower the temperature a lot just getting one win, even if you had lost 14 in a row? Everybody just gets a chance to exhale, right?
Oh, man, it makes going to work so much different, Dan. I mean, this was a locker room after the game on Thursday night that literally had the music blaring for the first time, honest to God, since the middle of last season. There was no reason to celebrate since then. And now guys are starting to feel good about each other. Justin Fields is starting to feel comfortable in the pocket. The team is going to start to get healthy. Kyler Gordon, their terrific nickelback, will come back this week. There's a chance that Jalen Johnson and Eddie Jackson in that defensive secondary may be back. Now we saw why this team gave up the first pick in the draft for, yeah, I get it, 2 first-rounders, but in my opinion, the jewel in that trade was DJ Moore. This franchise has not had a go-to wide receiver since Johnny Morris. Justin Jefferson, in 55 career games, has more career receiving yards than any Bears wide receiver in the 103-year history of this franchise. There is a lot to get excited about, and watch, I'll be brought back down to earth if they lay an egg against the Vikings on Sunday, minus Jefferson. But for right now, don't ruin the good feelings in this town, Danny boy.
Hey, we love having you in an upbeat mood. Like I said, you deserve it because that first month has been rough. Amy, unfortunately, the rough times continued for the Vikings. Look, we knew the Chiefs were going to be tough. We knew that these are the defending world champs, the defending Super Bowl champs. They're going to come in there. It's never going to be easy to beat a team like that. But here are the Vikings right there with a chance to win again, like it seems has been the case all season long. It's another close loss. From Lou's joy to your pain, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Yeah, you know, I think if Vikings fans are honest with themselves, right, we were all optimistic going into that game thinking this might be one that we could take here at home. But then you have the first play of the game, Josh Oliver fumbling that, and then it sort of just set the tone and the team just never recovered. So I think Vikings fans right now are somewhere on a scale from like say numb to rage, somewhere in there. I tend to be more on the numb side right now because I don't have time to be angry about this. I think a lot of us are wrapped up in the Twins right now and we get to have a little bit of a distraction with them in the playoffs. But you know, I got to tell you, it was a tough day, and it was the same story as you said, where we beat ourselves. You cannot play Patrick Mahomes in that way. You know, we held him, I think, better than a lot of Vikings fans anticipated that we were going to. But man, we had an opportunity to win, and it has become our mantra this season. We could have won that one. We should have won that one. And every game has just been the same. So how do we get out of this? I don't know. You know, we lose Jefferson as well in this game, which, to be perfectly honest, I don't know how a lot of Vikings fans feel about this, but in my opinion, this hurt me less because of the way we're performing right now. Had we been a team that is performing at our peak and Jefferson goes down, I think that's even more devastating, because right now I think a lot of fans are kind of looking at the season going, it is what it is. I don't know that we're going to even make the playoffs. So, you know what? Maybe rest them up and let's focus on next season.
You know, Amy, I looked, and we've talked about this on the show, at what the Vikings had done and said, you know what? They're just hurting themselves. And as soon as they stop doing that, this is still a good team. They can find their way back into this. So I just wonder, is there any optimism left in Minnesota, or are they just looking at this thing and just saying this is too much? Maybe it is time to look at the Twins.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I think some of the frustration from the fans is coming from the fact that we're not seeing anger and frustration with the team. And it's not to say that it's not there, but we're not seeing it. What we're hearing from Kevin O'Connell, what we're hearing from Kirk Cousins is who they are, which is positive and happy, and that's great. You know, we're going to turn this thing around, but at some point I want somebody to flip a table. I want somebody to get really passionate about this and say it's not acceptable, and show me it's not acceptable. Don't just say it. I want you to show me that it's not acceptable. So I guess I want to know who is stepping up in that locker room. Last year it was Zadarius. He was the one, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but he was the one who really pulled Kirk out of his shell. And the Kirk O'Chains really stemmed from Zadarius saying, this is our guy, this is our quarterback, you guys, we need to rally around him, he is our leader. And Kirk stepped up, and we saw the magical season that we had last season. This season, I don't know who that person is in the locker room. I don't think it's Harrison Smith. He's sort of taken a back seat to all of this, been a mentor to the newer guys around him. I want to know as a fan who is stepping up, because at this point, it's mental, right? I've never played a lick of football in my life, so I can sit here all day and I can sound like I know what I'm talking about. I really don't, but in my mind, this is mental. You don't drop passes like that. You don't fumble like that without it being some sort of a mental block. So I guess I want to see them step up, and until they do, I just have to say it is what it is this season, and not let my emotions ride too high or too low.
It's just tough, leading the league in giveaways. Now, I haven't done the math, but I imagine if I look back at the National Football League through 5 weeks, I don't imagine there's probably a team with a winning record that led the league in turnovers at that point. That's where Minnesota is, and it's just hard to win like that. Lily, we all sat and watched. The nation sat and watched that game on Monday night, and I think the painful thing for the Packers is, look, it's never easy to win on the road, but, man, that game was sitting right there for the taking.
Again, I think we have to apologize to the nation for the Packers football that was on display on Monday night. I know there's a saying, all you need is love, but I think in Green Bay, all you need is love and a good supporting cast. The Packers certainly had their chances in that game. You can talk about the Lions game, they were throttled in that one, had no chance, but On Monday night, they had a chance to win in Las Vegas and they could not get it done. You talk about the defense, which wanted to put this game on their shoulders because, again, it's a young offense under Jordan Love, and they certainly gave the offense plenty of chances, but they could not capitalize. The stat is Vegas comes into this game with one takeaway. Jordan Love throws 3 interceptions. That's not playing winning football, and he will admit to it. But I think what you saw in the field from the Green Bay Packers is they want to get out to a fast start, right? They've been outscored 54-6 in the first half in their last 3 games, including on Monday night. Matt LaFleur was posed the question, how do you guys get out to a fast start? And he didn't have answers, and that's not really what you want to hear, but I think it's lacking the imagination without Aaron Jones. If you have him on the field, he's a big playmaker on the ground in the passing game. You don't have him, and this is kind of the product that we saw. I think it was also very disappointing because this is a team that had 11 days to prepare to play the Raiders, who are not a very good team, and they still couldn't get the job done. I think it was a demoralizing loss, and again, I know it's a young football team. They'll get things straightened out, but it was there for the taking. They couldn't get it done, and now they go into the bye week at 2-3 with a lot of questions, and the most important thing is, what will this offense look like? Because it was not fun to watch. So again, apologies to everybody who had to watch the product that Green Bay put out there on the field. But again, they're heading into the bye week with a lot of questions.
Hey, look, we all have a range of emotions, even when we're doing our jobs, when we're watching these games. We have work to do. But when you see Josh McDaniels, in my mind, inexplicably not go for 4th and 1 and try to win the game, sends the field goal kicker out there, it's no good. You get the ball back. In your mind, are you thinking, thank you, you just gave us the chance we needed?
Absolutely. You're thinking, okay, that's a good play for the Packers because he should have gone for it on 4th and 1 against this Packers defense, which probably would have given up that first down had they run for it. But instead, you get a doink from Daniel Carlson, and it gives the Packers life. Unfortunately, again, this is a young team that was in a really crunch situation. They had the ball in their hands to say, can we win this game? And Jordan Love, I think he tried to play hero at the end, try to get it to Christian Watson, who he said after the game, Watson had the guy beat. So he wanted to try to get the ball to him. But if you look at the play as a whole, they had Samori Toure maybe 10 yards from the end zone. You dump it off to him, he might be able to score or at least get them in a better situation there to score a touchdown. So a learning experiences for this team, but you have to believe that if you have the ball with less than 2 minutes left to win a game, you want this young team to do that because that just builds confidence. And the way it ended was kind of fitting for just how the game played out for Jordan Love, with the game ending on an interception. So I think it was kind of deflating, but again, just another kind of thing to help this offense work out their kinks if they can kind of work past that as they head into the bye.
Hey, Dan and Amy, let me just jump in for a second. Can I tell you how good it felt to wake up and throw on ESPN and see those guys arguing on Get Up about how for the first time, boy, Aaron Rodgers never happened where he threw multiple interceptions in back-to-back games, and it's happened with Jordan Love. Now they feel our pain, what we've gone through in Chicago, Detroit, and Minnesota for the last 20-odd years, right?
Yeah, we haven't been able to go from Hall of Fame quarterback to Hall of Fame quarterback. It's we haven't had that luxury here. I heard you laugh as well. Were you screaming at your TV at Josh McDaniels like I was as well last night?
I swear to God, I thought he was on the take. I'm like, this is the worst call I've seen in football since Saturday night when my friend Mario Cristobal at the University of Miami was running the football instead of taking a knee. I'm like, what? Tell me the benefit of what he is doing here by trying to kick a 52-yard field goal. They have to score a touchdown whether he kicks the field goal and it's good or not. They're down by 4. What is this guy thinking? How do you not hand off to Josh Jacobs and let him just run for the first down? His Lilly touchdown. They were running right through that Packers defense. Maybe he thought all along, listen, Jordan Love, and I was looking at some numbers, guys. Against the Bears, Love's passer rating was $123. All right? He just looked like King Kong against that Bears defense. Ever since then, his passing rating in week 2, 113. Then it drops to 66, 69, and 32 last night against the Raiders. My gosh, Justin Fields has never had a 32 passer rating. And then I sit there and I ask myself, will the real Jordan Love step up which guy is it? Is it the guy that I saw take over Soldier Field, or is it the guy that I saw last night against the Raiders defense who was running for his life with Max Crosby seemingly chasing him on every drop-back pass out there? I'm in fear of Justin Fields now because guess what? The Raiders come to Chicago in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
well,
and let me tell you, I think it's, yeah, do it.
Oh, sure. Just to answer, Lou, your question, I think Packers fans want to believe it's the former, right? They want to believe it's the Jordan Love that we saw in Chicago. And I do think that with David Bakhtiari being out for the rest of the season, that's a really big blow to this offensive line. So, of course, the protection there on the left side is going to be not what it wants to be. But I think this is, again, a team that's learning. So when you have Jordan Love throwing some good passes, but his receivers just can't catch the ball, that's not going to help. And the run game has been abysmal. So that also doesn't help without Aaron Jones. So I think he's still going to be the quarterback that we saw in Chicago, but he needs help around him to be that guy. I mean, he's not in the Niners situation that, you know, you're a Brock Purdy, you get put into a really good situation, not taking anything away from Brock, but, you know, Jordan Love really wasn't propped into a situation like that. Not saying that it's a bad situation in Green Bay, but he needs help around him to be better, and I think hopefully as the year goes on, he will be.
Yeah, and I think the problem, too, is that go ahead, jump in there, Amy.
I was just going to say, I just really quickly, I love the commiserating here. I just absolutely love it. I love that in our newsroom, as we're watching this game last night, we had Packers fans and Vikings fans who are often at each other's throats, almost embracing and just saying, it's all right. You know, we've been there, we feel it. And Dan, I know that you are in this position where you could hold a therapy session with us all right now and walk us through what we're going through and then some. But I got to tell you, I'm kind of enjoying watching it from a fan's perspective to see how we are all kind of bonding over how awful our seasons are, with the exceptions of the Lions. But again, you've been there, so you know.
Amy, if they cheer for the Packers in the Fox Chicago newsroom, I ask them to please leave. Go find somewhere else to go watch the game. Nobody, I don't care if you're over the border from Wisconsin and Kenosha or Lake Geneva, you need to leave and go watch the game in the blue room or the green room or whatever we call it here.
Yeah, trust me, we don't hire anybody from the UP. We don't hire anybody from the UP that might be a Packer fan. That's one of the questions on the questionnaire you fill out when you come to work here. We don't play that. But listen, and I do feel for you guys because, as Amy said, I've been where you guys are. But as I recap Week 5 for the Lions, I got to tell you, it was a heck of a win for them. And I think, you know, we're learning something about the Lions every week. And I thought this week the key thing to learn about them was, how are you going to react when you take the field and you are demonstrably better than the team in front of you? And they were better than the Panthers. They're just in different places right now. Panthers are rebuilding. Lions are beyond the rebuild right now and moving on to the point where they should be relevant and are relevant. And they went out there and just handled their business. And they went out there from really the opening kickoff. Didn't give them a reason to think that this was going to be a day where they were going to get healthy, and really did what you're supposed to do when you're a good team. Going into the game, we didn't know whether or not to expect that because, look, there's a little bit of trepidation when you've been through what the Lions have been through that maybe they're going to have a clunker, but they didn't do that. So we're learning maybe this Lions team is a little bit different, and that's exciting around here. There's some tough games ahead. They got to go. We'll talk about it. They got to go to Tampa, to Baltimore, and those are not going to be easy. But every win that you stack up now, as Minnesota found out last year, every win you stack up now is one that's going to be in your win column when you get to the end of the year. But let me come back to you for a second because I want to ask you, we've had a lot of Justin Fields talk on this show. But in the last 2 games, and look, your world could look a lot different. You should have beaten Denver and could have beaten Denver. But that being said, last 2 games, Fields 43 for 64, 617 yards, 8 touchdowns and an interception. Are some of the concerns about Jordan Fields, at least for the moment, letting up? Is there some hope here?
Well, here, I'll answer it this way, and I'm going to go actually to what Amy said, because Amy touched on maybe Minnesota starting to tank the season and potentially maybe trading Kirk Cousins before the trade deadline, which is, if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 weeks from today. It's on Halloween at 4 o'clock Eastern time. There may be an opportunity. Obviously, we all know that the Jets are still looking for a quarterback. There was plenty of tanking talk in this town because Bears fans wanted Caleb Williams. He's the jewel out there. He is the generational quarterback. I had a front office guy in the NFL tell me that he thinks he's the best quarterback coming out of college since Andrew Luck back in 2012. And if that's the case, you had Bears fans asking themselves, well, we're 0-4. Are we better off just tanking the rest of this season to assure ourselves the number 1 pick, Caleb Williams? Then we can move Justin Fields, see what we can get on the open market for Justin Fields. And now that narrative has changed. Okay, now people are like, whoa, wait. As you just touched on, Dan, Fields has thrown for a whole bunch of yards recently, 8 touchdowns. This is a guy who didn't throw for 300 yards in a football game in his first 28 NFL starts. He clearly looks different, more comfortable, going through his progressions. Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator, adding more design runs for his quarterback. It's completely changed the dynamic of this offense. And again, it starts up front, guys. Bears were running the football effectively against Washington on Thursday night. Khalil Herbert, before he got injured, was averaging over 7 yards a pop carrying the football. They ran it for $178 against the Commanders. So a lot of good is happening with an offense that's racked up 922 total yards. Those numbers are unheard of in this town when it comes to an offense. So let's see what happens the next couple of weeks. Brian Flores aggressive with that Minnesota defense. Can the offensive line again hold true, hold strong like they did in the last game, and give Fields time in the pocket to find DJ Moore or Cole Kmet or even Darnell Mooney? We'll see. Jury is still out. But yes, Dan, to answer your question, the narrative is starting to change on Justin Fields.
So, Amy, let me come to you and ask you about where you are right now. Lou mentioned it. There are the Jets out there who need a quarterback. So any quarterback that might be available is maybe bound for the Jets because they have Super Bowl talent, but they just don't have a quarterback right near. So let me ask you, if you were to take the temperature, and this is not scientific, but to take the temperature of the folks in Minnesota, if the Vikings were to trade Kirk Cousins, what would the reaction be?
All right, let me walk you through. First of all, I'll race you to Caleb Williams. All right, Lou, we're going to race to Caleb. I think we're looking ahead. I think fans now start to realize that Kirk Cousins is not the quarterback of the future. We're going to have a 36-year-old quarterback on our hands next season. So here are the facts. There's a no-trade clause, right? Kirk Cousins needs to agree to go somewhere first. We all watch the quarterback series on Netflix. We all know that Kirk Cousins likes being in control and grounding his family where he is. Will he even want to go midseason and pull up stakes? That's a big question. The other thing to think about here is the fact that Nick Mullins, our backup, is injured right now. He has a back injury, so he's teetering on IR. They haven't put him on there yet. If he goes on IR, if something were to happen, knocking on wood here, to Kirk, our quarterback is Jaron Hall, right? The rookie out of BYU, who I love, big Jaron Hall fan, not ready for prime time. After that, we have Tanner Morgan, who's on the practice squad, former Gopher quarterback. So are the Vikings even in a position to want to wheel and deal right now when things are a little bit fragile? So I think we have to think about all those things. As far as the fans go, I think there's a contingency that loves Kirk, and I think most of the fans here love Kirk, especially after the quarterback series. But I also feel like they're realistic and they look ahead. I think the wild card in all of this is JJ. We know that Justin Jefferson didn't sign this last season, and we know that he talked about the fact that he wanted to make sure that Kirk Cousins, he said it without saying it, right, that Kirk Cousins was in there because he didn't want to have to start over with another rookie quarterback or somebody he wasn't familiar with for the next couple of years. So how does JJ play into all this? There's a lot of moving parts, but right now, based on what we've seen this season, I don't think we can blame all of these problems on Kirk. I think there's enough blame to go around. But I think a lot of us wish he would have stepped up more as a leader to pull this team out of this. So we'll see what happens here in the next few games. I haven't written him off just yet, but yeah, we're in a tricky situation here in Minnesota with the quarterback.
Lily, let me ask you, I mentioned a moment ago, look, the back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks you had, everybody knew this was going to be tough to just step in and replace Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's a really tall order, even if Green Bay is talented. Not having Aaron Jones, as you mentioned, makes it very tough. So let me ask you, what's the level of patience that people have there for Love? Because he does appear to have some talent. It's just a tough position to be in when you are stepping into that spot.
For sure, and I think if people listen to the Pat McAfee show and they heard Aaron Rodgers talk today, Aaron Rodgers himself said, be patient with Jordan Love. I think fans who are realistic with the situation that they are in after 3 decades of phenomenal quarterback play, you're not going to have a guy step in and take this team to the Super Bowl. Yes, it would be ideal. Yes, it would be phenomenal to keep it going, but you have to realize this is a first year for Jordan Love as a starter of the Green Bay Packers, which so many expectations. And I think, again, if you're realistic, making a push to the playoffs, winning 8 to 9 games is, I think, the benchmark for where this team wants to be realistically. Of course, they want to overachieve, but with the product that we see on the field, again, this Packers team under Jordan Love is probably 2 drives away from being 4-1, or they're 2 drives away from being 1-4. So there's a lot of room to work with, but the patience has to be there because it's not just him. He needs everybody else around him to make him better and to help him be a really good quarterback. So again, despite what we saw on Monday night against the Raiders, this team and the fans, they have to be patient. The schedule, again, is in their favor. They go into the bye week and they go to Denver to play a pretty bad Broncos team. And if this offense cannot put up points in the first half against Denver, there's going to be a lot of noise, even more noise coming into Green Bay, Matt LaFleur and that coaching staff. So you have to believe that they want to get things righted before that game in Denver. And then you look at the schedule, there's a lot of workable games for Jordan Love to improve on. If you get Aaron Jones back and you get guys healthy, that's going to help him overall. But again, I think people are being patient. I will say, though, there were people on Twitter saying, put in Alex Magoo. Let's not listen to those people. Let's be patient, and they'll be okay.
Yeah, when you start letting Twitter coach your team, there is a problem there. That doesn't usually work out well. You know, I will tell you guys, as we get to this week and kind of push it forward to the games coming up, we're not talking about the quarterback here. Everybody loves what Jared Goff is doing. He's doing a great job. Biggest problem the Lions have right now is just injuries. They played this past week without Amon-Ra St. Brown, without Jahmyr Gibbs, without Brian Branch. That's 3 pretty big-time players for them. They're hoping to get some of those guys back. But the impressive thing in Detroit, which we hadn't really seen before, is they've been able to endure these injuries. And they've shown that they have some depth. But you don't want to have to keep doing that, so they're hoping even before they go into this game against Tampa, which they're expected to be tough. Look, the Bucs are playing well. They're leading their division. They've got a good defense, and Baker Mayfield looks like he's had a bit of a rebirth, and he's already had some success against the NFC North, so they're going down to Tampa Bay with their eyes wide open that this is a good team. I think one of the things that Detroit also has working for them is that they have won at Arrowhead and they have won at Lambeau. So you got some young guys on this team who maybe don't understand exactly what it is to play on the road in the NFL or how tough it is, but they do know they went into 2 of the toughest places in the league to win, and they got out of there with victories. So I think they'll go down there with some confidence. But look, this is going to be a tough game, and they know that, and they've got to go down there and play good football the right way, not turn the ball over, and find a way to win. The divisional game this week that we're looking at is Minnesota at Chicago. Somebody can get out of there, finding a way to win another game. Lou, let me start with you. What are you looking at this week against the Vikings?
I'm actually looking at this as being a positive week for the Bears. Really, I'm going to put them on the spot again. I said, you know what, I can't get behind them until they go out and show me personally that they can be a winning football team, and they showed that on Thursday. They're going to get healthier. I touched on it at the beginning of the show, Dan. I talked about what I felt was the strength of this team going into the season, that being their defensive secondary, getting healthier now. They had lost 4 or 5 starters. The only starter that they had out there that was somewhat healthy was Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami, who was actually a rookie. But now you've got Kyler Gordon back playing the nickelback spot, and you've got, as I mentioned, the possibility that Jalen Johnson and Eddie Jackson will be in that secondary as well. So I think it really helps a defense that actually puts some pressure on Sam Howell, Washington's starting quarterback. Now, if you look at it, every defense out there that's playing Washington is putting pressure on that quarterback. Boy, he had been sacked more than any other quarterback in the league going into last Thursday, 24 times. But the Bears got to him. They put pressure. I saw Ngakoue lather up and get to the QB. I think it happens again on Sunday against Kirk Cousins, who isn't easy to bring down. 61 pass attempts against the Bears last year. Bears had only 1 sack, but I really feel that's more of an indictment against the worst pass rush in football than it is looking at a Kirk Cousins as being mobile in the pocket. So I think the Bears put pressure, and then I can only hope that Justin Fields protects the football. I'm a little worried about Brian Flores dialing it up, that defensive coordinator madman in Minnesota right now, and putting pressure on Fields and trying to force him into mistakes. He has the propensity to fumble, give up the football himself when he feels pressure coming from sides and he doesn't see it coming. So I can only hope that the Bears keep it close. They're also going to be down guys to their fourth, potentially, their fourth running back. Obviously, the injured list doesn't come out till tomorrow, but Khalil Herbert, their fine running back, from what I understand, from what's being reported out there, according to multiple sources, suffered a real bad foot injury, may even be a high ankle sprain. He could be out for multiple weeks. The terrific rookie running back, Roschon Johnson, is in concussion protocol. So luckily, they have Dante Foreman on their roster, who's been inactive the last 4 weeks, but Foreman last year was playing behind Christian McCaffrey in Carolina, and then when McCaffrey got traded to San Francisco, Foreman still racked up almost 1,000 yards last season. So Foreman, if there's injuries to Herbert and Johnson and it keeps those guys out, at least Foreman can become their starting halfback, and they also signed Darrington Evans off of Miami's practice squad. Evans spent some time with the Bears last year, so he knows the offensive scheme. So I like the Bears. Here's the quick answer, Dan. I like the Bears to beat the Vikings.
All right. Well, Amy, Minnesota's got to go on the road. We talked about what a win can mean. Even in the darkest of times, it can make things feel just so much better and just take some of the heat off of everybody. Can Minnesota get it done?
Well, first of all, this is a good time to remind everybody watching that I'm a news gal. I'm just a random news person who's a Vikings fan, so I cannot give you the in-depth analysis that we just heard from Lou, but here is what I can tell you. I don't want to hide behind the fact that we don't have Justin Jefferson. I think for the rest of the season, or however long he's out, we cannot say, well, we didn't have JJ. Well, we didn't. Everybody has injuries. Yeah, our offense revolves around him, but we need to move on from that. And I think the way to move on from that is Jordan Addison. And I think we saw some sparks with him last week. Very, very optimistic about what we've seen with that young man and just the natural talent that he is. When it comes to B-Flow, Brian Flores, and that defense, I think what we need to see, and with all due respect, Lou, I feel like this might be a game like the Vikings had against the Panthers a couple of weeks ago, where you got two teams who are just struggling. It's not a gimme for either of them. They fought. Both teams did pretty well. But the person who came out for us really in that game was Harrison Smith. And so if we can get a big game from Harrison Smith again, and he can step up and be that leader, I think we're going to see the Vikings come out on top here. So I'm optimistic, but again, all due respect to the Bears. I mean, they're coming off this win, and it's a big week, and there's a lot of emotion riding high right now in Chicago. So we'll see what happens, but I got to go Vikings on this one.
Hey, Amy, you might be a news gal, but you just nailed it. That was absolutely perfect, and it sets up this game, which is going to be a lot of fun between two teams that should be desperate to get a victory. Before we get out of here, Lily, look, you mentioned it. You have the bye. Are you guys going to get healthy on this bye? Are we going to see Aaron Jones back soon? Because not seeing him in the game gives a whole different picture for that Green Bay offense.
I think this Packers team wants him back ASAP. I think they were going into Las Vegas game planning to have him in, and they didn't have that at the last second, so they really had to kind of scratch their heads and figure things out without Aaron Jones, and we saw the product on the field. So, again, as they head into the bye week, they have to get their guys healthy, primarily Aaron Jones. It was a good sign that we saw Jair Alexander back on Monday night as well. But I think Aaron Jones is the priority. Get him healthy and figure out a way to have the offense be put in better positions to have this team score. Because, again, if they cannot beat Denver, there's going to be a lot of noise, and it's not going to be good noise coming at the Packers and their coaching staff. And Lou, no disrespect to the Bears, I don't think the Packers want to be in a situation where they falter against the Broncos. This is a must-win game, in my opinion, for Green Bay, especially coming off back-to-back losses. And it's another bye week, so they need to win this game, and we'll see what adjustments, if any, Matt LaFleur and his staff do make.
All right, before we leave, guys, just let me play to my base here for a second because we don't get to do this very often. Your NFC North standings show the Detroit Lions at the top at 4-1, Green Bay at 2-3, Minnesota at 1-4, Chicago at 1-4. I just wanted to throw that in there because we haven't had that vantage point very often. We're enjoying it. We're going to have to continue to earn it. But we'll see what this thing looks like next week. Maybe it looks a little bit different. We'll have
you
to
guys
wait and
deserve
see.
it. You guys are the cream of the crop in the division.
We're hoping.
Can we all hug?
I hope you're
Can we
saying
just hug
that
right
next
now?
week.
I
We
feel
know
like
how
we need a
things
hug.
change. It's all good stuff, guys. We know it's fluid in this league, and that's what makes it fun. That'll do it for this week's edition of First and North. I'm Dan Miller, covering the Lions in Detroit. For Amy Hockert in Minneapolis, covering the Vikings. For Lou Canellis in Chicago, covering the Bears. For Lily Zell in Fox Milwaukee, covering the Packers. That'll do it. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to talking to you next week when we can all sound much different. We'll see you then.